So in today's video, what I'm going to go through and do is, I've been quite busy in this shop, as you've seen from the channel, and it's worked out great for me so far, but what I need to do is go through and do some much needed house cleaning and maintenance, because it's well, let's kind of show here for a sec. She dirty in here. Not only do I have like various projects all around, but I also have a lot of tripping hazards. A lot of leftover dust and dirt and grime. It's a lot of materials and everything, but it's just needs some work. So we're gonna give it a little bit of loving, and I'll see if I can also use up some of my materials to finally cover up some of the insulation that I had put in. I got one wall pretty much 100%, and of course the ceiling, which is Reflectix, and worked great, but I was helping to hold any insulation in, and I need to actually get some solid boards up. So I'm gonna go through, do some much needed hole filling, and just start getting it all patched up. So a fellow creator, we'll call him Anvil Rings, or Grand Junction guy, put up for sale or free this awesome Harbor Freight dust collector. It has been sitting here collecting dust, sadly not in the way that you would hope, but I've been trying to figure out a good spot. I have tested it and used it once or twice, but I need to actually get a more permanent spot for it. There is a lot of modified versions of this that a lot of woodworkers and people who do auto paint work and a couple other things have used, taking this motor. So they usually take this motor and they turn it on its side, and then they'll mount it on the wall, and they usually have a separate contraption for this little guy to sit off to the side. They run the hose over to it, and then they have a bag on that, but then they'll also have like something in the middle for like a dust collector, or dirt devil, or a dirt deputy. A couple different brands have it to where it separates it out, and they actually just use that as a throwaway, and then they just use the filter bag and this for catching the ultra fine dust and whatnot. But I just need any kind of dust collection for the moment, so for right now I'll probably put it in a lot more of a easy setup for it. Quick tip for you would be that when I was working in construction, my foreman showed me this. You just use any kind of tape. I ended up having duct tape, but painter's tape or masking tape or anything of that sort. Once you make your line, get everything set up properly, you can lay tape over it if you're using some kind of cutting edge like I have. Otherwise, what you can end up doing a lot of times is just lay down your tape first where you know your measurement is going to be, remeasure, and then mark on the tape. This will do two things for you. If you're going to cut a little bit shy or heavy from the line or any of those types of terms, you can also then remove the line once you're done cutting. But on surfaces or substances like I was using, I'm reusing some different boards that I had for shelving that ended up working as good wall material, so that way it's still 100% free. I'm trying to keep the shop as cheap as possible, but also just seeing how far I can go with reused material before I end up having to keep purchasing for it. It's more or less just kind of a lot of me wanting to test to see if I can do it, kind of like a challenge a little bit, and then I'll go through and paint all the walls and everything to one set color, and I have a few different future ideas for that. But yeah, one little quick tip for you is just use any kind of tape that you can, so that way the covering or board won't splinter. So if you're using OSB or anything that kind of has like a melamine board, or anything that has like a surface coating on it of some kind of plastic or anything like that, that'll keep it from chipping and flipping away. The blade, as it cuts into it and then pulls back out of the material, sometimes can cut and grab the material rather than actually cut it. So yeah, just a little quick tip. So I got these 4 big panels up and those 2 little ones, kind of just completing the space a bit. Once it's painted, it'll look a lot better. I'm running into a new issue. I'm going to be covering up a lot of this insulation and, like I said, those reflectix that were put up there that have been reflecting heat really well. Here's the new issue. My neighbor had got a shipment in and had some of this really nice thin plywood, and I was going to throw it up in the rafters, but a full 8 by what's that, 8 foot by 4 foot sheet can't quite fit the dynamics to get over my rafters, not hit my ceiling and tear up my insulation and get into this corner. So I want to start in this corner, build out from it, and all that fun jazz. And the other issue I'm running into is I do not have any real footprint or floor space currently, and I'm trying to keep all my material away from the snow outside, so it's all right there and right here. So that is the next task to tackle. As you can see, just one sheet of plywood and I'm trying to get it up there, but I'm gonna have to cut down 2 feet, it looks like, so that way it is 6 foot on center for me, for dead center, that is. So yeah, we'll give her a cut and see if she'll stick on up. Alright, so made the cut, put a ladder up in here, and it just barely fit up there. Had to move my light over and kind of actually supported it off of these strings I had up there. That way I can move it back and forth up on the rafters. So yeah, we'll get that mounted up next. Alrighty, so I went through and I've been kind of fixing this up a bit. When I was originally going through and making all the sheeting go on the wall here, the way the pallets are lined up is you'll have these little guys here that will kind of create the spacing needed for the sheeting to go into. So that becomes kind of my pseudo stud in the pallet. And you can kind of see up there, there it is, how that kind of works a bit. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you there. So you can see it's 2x4 with a little stringer bit on top. Not actually a stringer, it's just called like a face or a sheeting kind of a little piece of wood. And then I've been tying into those and also the stud work behind them. Or it's been becoming my stud work. So over here I've got your 2x4 structure, and then I have those same little stringers that I've been matching up and putting in to create a proper gapping, because I just left it open before. But now I'm slowly going through, filling in that gap there. All the way up along the sides here I'm going to have it. And you can see I've got one stringer there, one there for the sheeting as it goes across. And right there will be my finisher. Got my insulation, of course. And I'm going to go through and just kind of fill in all these gaps. I actually ended up cutting this board. There you go. And it fits perfectly once I have that gap filled. So that will become my new sill. Alright, we're hard underway. So I've got one little piece scabbed up in there. Alright, it's gotten dark now, but you can kind of see preliminary what it looks like walking in. I got those sheets up all the way to that end. I have one little piece of that little thermal screen, you can call it, kind of fell. But that's all boarded up now. In this little gap area here, what I'll probably end up doing is getting some good fabric, tacking it to the top and bottom. So this is technically my little vent line. I left some holes mild that insects can't really get through with some screen. So that's where it allows venting to go out. But I got it pretty much clean now. Everything's organized. Everything's ready to rock and roll. So yeah, this is kind of why things were paused for a bit after the last little videos, so that way I could get a lot more done. This windowsill is pretty much the only thing left. I do have these two end pieces to fill in eventually. but for right now, the walls are complete. I'll be putting some shelving up, and I'll be mounting my sign up in here, and then come spring I'll be going through and painting, making it look all nice and professional. But yeah, just kind of a quick little update. There we go. See a little bit farther back. She's coming along. So I was going to add also that my parents designed, created, and made this awesome sign for the workshop. It's made out of live edge wood. I believe they were telling me that this one is hickory, and it is very old and very sturdy, but I just love the look of it. And this is actually detachable as well. Isn't that just absolutely gorgeous? Super stoked with it. And this sign is awesome. The shop now finally has a legitimate sign. So for the while there, I was contemplating if I wanted to put it outside or inside. You can kind of see there what it originally looked like, but I love that live edge on there. So they've clear coated it and made it 100% protected, so that way it could go outside. But I like it so much, I don't really want to put it outside. Alrighty, so I now have some shelving I got from my work. They were cleaning it all up and getting rid of it. So it will go up here between the rafter down to about here, all the way across and to this wall. And I will get that one up first, and then if I like it, I'm going to mirror it on that edge, or this wall rather. So that way I can have just a little bit more storage in here. So we got one shelf up now, added to the 2x4s, and on that side I had some distancing issues because the thickness of the plywood that is here is thicker than the plywood that is up there. So I have a little bridge part here that'll reach over, and it will hold, as you can kind of see here. This piece is this piece, so that will just kind of sit as a cap. And then I will throw a screw on either end and from the top. And then on this side, I'll have a similar setup, which would just be the 2x4s going straight up, where I can kind of zigzag a couple screws on the sides, and then this is all structured off of the truss. So it should be pretty strong. And now, there was two. I have to figure out, I have an extension cable that has been run up and over to my light, just as a quick solution for a plug-in light without having to run an outlet up through the wall, onto a stringer, out to a stringer, just to have plug-ins up there that would get clogged with dust and whatnot. So that's been my solution up to this point. That will be the next little deal. What I'll probably end up doing is routing it through that hole. But as you can see, it's very nice and secure, pretty strong. It's just barely within reach. The width on these just so happen to be perfect enough that the totes I'm going to be using, I can get some fingers underneath and push out. And there's barely anything really overhanging, so I don't have to really fear about it falling on me. So next setup will be these two guys. They're going to get nipped in the same treatment, a little bit better, and put up here. And then what I'll probably end up doing actually is taking the dust collector, instead of putting it up here like I had originally planned, I can now run a shelf across, this shelf across, and then cover up all that meh and mount right up in the center dust collector. So it'll be at the tallest point, and then I can have a line run off the side that can just go to any part of the shed or workspace. Since my tube is long enough, I can set up a planer in the middle and run the planks right out the window, or I can hook it to where it's dust collecting from my lathe as I'm using it, and from its setup there I can have a tube drape over and hook into via an adapter into my chop saw. So I'm really excited about how well this should hopefully work out. So fingers crossed, and here's to the next fun project. Alrighty, so in this portion of the build, you could say, what we're looking at doing next is we've got the shelf up, which is awesome, but in comes the next setup. So at the wondrous Big Blue building, if you know that location of places to purchase things and groceries, I ended up buying myself, if it'll focus there, a 20 amp plug. So what I'm going to go through and do with this is, I have over in this corner here 4 plugins that I need to get the cover on. I need to clean that out a little bit too. I've been moving a few things around and whatnot, but I'm going to go through and put a line going from this plug-in across behind the wall, of course, following this line so that I don't end up actually having the ability to drill into it. So I'm going to just run it right behind here, behind the wall itself, running over, and I think I'm going to have it either around here or probably up a little higher. Not quite sure, but I'm trying to figure out so that the shopsmith can plug into it and I can utilize the bottom plug-in. And then in the top plug-in, I want to be able to run the dust collector. But I'm trying to figure out a pinpoint area, because I'm looking at putting the dust collector up and around here, probably about there. And the cord will drape down, so I could put it somewhere over here, depending on the length of cord. So that way I'm kind of spreading the difference between the shopsmith and the dust collector. Because, yeah, just need a little extra power in the shed. So to take a quick second here, you can kind of see a little bit of the inner workings of the walls here and kind of how I built it. I put each of the pallets on their side and ran them along to where I was actually bridging them together with vertical and some horizontal nails, as well as long lag bolts and screws going through, to where now these joints where the stringers meet up are actually kind of like wooden welds, if you will. And then down here for extra bracing and support, what I did is I tagged in 2x6s, actual old school legit 2x6s that I got from a barn that a buddy of mine actually had torn down on his property, and asked, hey, do you want any old barn wood? And which of course anyone would answer if they're anyone good with wood or enjoyed it, which was yes please. So I ended up getting that and stringing it throughout here. So this actually acts as my skeleton, essentially, running through the skeleton, if you will. So it's a good infrastructure to kind of help build for the workbenches to mount to. So what I'm going to do here is tie into this box here just one extra cable going across up to another box that'll have just a single plug set up into it, or this little guy right here. So yeah, that's just kind of a quick little inside look of the makeup of my shed. Also, just in case anyone is wondering, this is some backing or additional little slats onto a pre-existing pallet, of course. So just like how you have a normal pallet built up, I ran these together for screw points, and also these three just for a cool color contrast going through that little peekaboo hole inside of these nice solid walls for a little showroom. Alrighty, and just like that, you've got the tail sticking up there, and it is secured up, over, throughout, back down, up, and then this is going to go through back of that guy. Alrighty, now we have a full-on outlet, the line running over, fully tied in, and there's the original. Got the cover on. Had to cut out a bit of excess wire. I had quite a bit too much of this in there, so it's a bit more consolidated. Everything's tightened up. So now it's just on to putting the walls back up, and then I can actually look at getting into the dust collection. Project that I am most begrudgingly going to have to do next is clear everything out and lay down carpet, which seems counterintuitive, but it was free. It will seal off a lot of the draft that I get from hardwood floors, because I just don't have the time to go through and properly pull the nails, re-get everything situated the way I want it to, surface the whole floor, put wood filler into the gaps, or try to do some kind of resin epoxy over top of everything, and then just deal with a variety of wait time and the ability to, or the inability to, use my shed as everything dries. Plus I have to have a space to put all of my tools and belongings, which is part of the reason that I wanted to put the shelves up, so I can get almost everything off the floor, remove the footprint of most everything in here, and then if I have to down the road I can do it in stages. But for right now I'm going to remove everything. I have some carpet that's really thin. It's like churches use it a lot, and different like high traffic for like malls and whatnot, and I've seen a few people use it in their shop. It's going to help with sound deadening, it's going to help with heating and air conditioning, as well as if I drop my chisels, it's going to be nice for it to hit carpet versus hardwood or nails in the wood. And I've had it happen to me a couple times where I've just completely chipped big old chunks out of my chisels, or I've dropped drills and stuff on it. It at least gives a little bit of forgivingness, and it'll be a little bit easier on the feet. Not huge, but something. So that's going to be the next endeavor, so stick around. I know a few of you are going to be like, oh, but that flooring, but it is a future project. I will come back to it, I swear, eventually. So here's all the contents temporarily from inside the shed. It's empty for the most part. Didn't touch anything on the shelves, and my workbench looks pretty well destroyed for the moment. I gotta clear out that little bit there. But this is one long last goodbye to at least the majority of the hardwood floor. And here is with carpet installed, everything cleaned on up, walking on in. Here's some new additions. Those will be in some later content videos. But here's the carpet fully installed. Everything ended up lining up just perfectly to where even though it was free scraps that I was able to get, they ended up making it look as though I kind of planned for this design in the carpet, but it all lined out nicely. Got quite a bit of my wood stored up above now. You'll see that in probably the next video. Little rack up there for chemicals and such. Signs up on the wall now. Got the Bauer fitness or thickness planer. So if you want, I have a review on that one, so stay tuned or click over and I'll probably link in the description. Here's the dust collector up finally in all of its glory. Runs and works amazingly. Use it to death with the thickness planer. Works phenomenally with that, and even has the good old adapter that fits perfectly. All my drills are up on the wall now. Kind of used stole a little trick off of Pinterest there and ended up getting that all sorted out. Got my hammers up now, easily accessible. All the varying styles from mallets to normal steel hammers. And everything is within grasp and immediately able to be grabbed depending on the use and project. So sorry that this video took a second to get out, and it's a little bit kind of combined quite a few different things that have all happened in the shed's transformation into what it is now. But I ended up actually getting a mild knock on the head that ended up becoming being an actual full concussion. And I ended up having to take a bit out of time away from the shed and away from the YouTubes and everything. I couldn't be on electronics, reading, or anything that really like used super brain power. Had to take a day off of work. And yeah, now I'm able to get back on the wagon of that and start creating and pumping out content. So I made a few adjustments to how this is. The carpet works amazingly for helping keep drafts down. This was getting pretty drafty. The wood is nice and I'll probably revisit it, but as of right now I'm going to leave it covered, and it's working really good with the dust collector and everything. I don't actually have to worry about the carpet getting super nasty. I can do projects and get a little bit of dust and just kind of run a vacuum over it, or just use my shop vac that I have under here and it'll work great. But this is so far where we were at. So thank you very much for watching and staying tuned and staying with this channel. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like and subscription for the channel if you enjoy this, it helps me out a bunch, and it helps the channel out a great deal. Every subscription counts and every view counts. So thank you very much for your continued patronage, and hopefully you enjoyed this. It's a lengthy video, and like I said, I'll add some more, letting you know exactly what's going on with everything and what all I was able to finish up and do. I got the ceiling pretty well done there too. But thank you all so very much. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next video.